Good morning, Believe Nation. Today we're going to talk about 5 ways to manage your time and yourself. Rule number 5 is my personal favorite, and I'm curious to figure out which one you guys like the best. Also, as you're listening in, if somebody says something that really resonates with you, please leave it in the comments below and put quotes around it so other people can be inspired as well.
My challenge in our generation is that gradually through entertainment, through television, through media, through every way possible, we are living in a generation of the dumbing down of ideas. Because we have traded effectiveness for busyness. Statistics say, yeah, somebody ought to clap on that. We are busier than any other generation we have seen in the last 300 to 400 years. We are so busy. We are busier than a one-arm wallpaper hanger. We're just busy. You'll get it later. Don't worry about it. It'll hit you in a minute. We are just as busy as we can be, and we think because we're busy, we're effective. But I want you to challenge your schedule for a minute and ask yourself, are you really being effective? Or is your life cluttered with all kinds of stuff that demands you and drains you and taxes you and stops you from being your highest and best self? And are you substituting busyness and all the chaos that goes along with busyness from being effective? Let me tell you, a bunch of scientists got together and they began to do some research, and they begin to determine that 80% of the things we do are busy things that we do in an area that is not effective, that the average person only spends 20% of their time doing the thing that they are really gifted at, created at, passionate about, excited to do, and the rest of it is all the dismal, dumb stuff that we all have to do in order to survive. Just crazy stuff that we're doing. Wonder what would happen if we would go from doing 80% of things that are busy but not effective and 20% of the things that are really effective if we would switch those numbers around and only give 20% of our time to the things that we have to do and 80% of our time to the thing that we were created to do. Wonder what would happen to your life. Now think about it a minute. There's a lot of things you could take from me and I could make it. You could take my suit, I got another one. You could take my car, I could get another one. You could take my house, I could get another house. But when you take my time, you have taken something from me that is totally irreplaceable. We take all kind of classes for money management. We know how to manage our money. We know how to repair our houses. We're working on our hair and our bodies and all of this kind of stuff. We do everything except the most important thing is to value our time. It takes time to be creative. You were meant to be creative. You were created in the likeness and the image of a creator, and in that likeness and in that image, you have creativity. If you had time, you would be creative. But in the absence of time and with busyness and clutter and the phone going beep, 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 you all got music playing on your phone, all kinds of stuff. And no matter what kind of song you put on it, after a while you hate to hear it, because every time you hear that sound, you know it's somebody else wanting something else from you that's taking you away from what you are gifted and creative to do.
All time management should always start with a higher level conversation about your life goals, about what do you really want to achieve in life, and working backwards from there. Because most people just say, well, you know, time management, check your email just twice a day. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a great tip, thanks, but what's your goal? I mean, what do you really want in life? If you don't start from there and then work backwards, then you're just kind of doing random tasks each day. You'll find yourself doing busy work, but it's not your life's work. You might be getting progressively faster or better or higher achieving or more respected over here, but it's in the wrong area. So let's not make you effective and productive going down the wrong path. Start with the big question. What do I really want for my life now? You've been through enough. What now? I mean, you're older now, you're more mature now, you're more independent. What do you want now? And when you think about that, think about three big categories. First, think about yourself, your character. Who do you want to become as a person? Who would you feel proud to be? What would create a lot of self-respect and integrity in your life where you're thinking, that's the kind of person I want to be? Start there always. Like, what kind of person do you really want to be? What would you have to achieve to feel good about yourself? Second, think about your relationship goals. Like, how do you want to show up for your family, for your spouse, for your team, for those that you lead or serve? What kind of person shows up for them? What's that energy like in your interactions? What do you ultimately want to have or experience in your family? Like, how would you know you're successful unless you're gauging somehow what you want in your relationships? And then also think about your growth goals. Like, what would make you exceptional at what you do? What would really bring a higher level of excellence into your life? What about growth goals in terms of enrichment? What would make you happier? What would make you feel calmer, more stable, more mindful, more joyous, more happy? I know these are random sets of questions, but they're all tied to one simple idea. We should know what our big picture is. What's our life goals? And then work backwards from there.
Prepare in advance. The old saying, proper prior preparation saves poor performance or prevents poor performance, the 6 Ps. And so prepare your work list for the following day, the evening or the night before. The last thing you do at the end of the day is you lay out the day that's coming. The best exercise is for you to plan your entire next day as the last thing you do before coming home from work. When you plan your day the night before, your subconscious mind then goes to work on your plans and goals while you're asleep. Very often you'll wake up in the morning with ideas and insights that apply to the work of the day. Now, a major benefit of preparing your daily list the night before is that this exercise lets you sleep more soundly. A major reason for insomnia is people lying awake trying not to forget to remember everything that they have to do the following day. But once you've written down everything that you have to do on the list, it clears your mind and enables you to sleep deeply. This will help you increase your productivity throughout the whole next day of work because you'll be more relaxed and more refreshed.
Interestingly enough, I've discovered that time management really comes down to setting conditions in your life that make it so that you can't do anything but focus on the important things. Okay? It's not about making a list of things to do and then doing the right things, although that can be important sometimes. It's about setting up your life and your environment so that you automatically do the things that are important and you don't have the option to do other things. Examples include when you first get to work in the morning, don't check your voicemail and your email. Work for a couple of hours on your most important project and work on something that has a high lifetime value, something that's going to make a lot of value, create a lot of money now and in the future. What do most people do? They come in, they check their email and their voicemail, and they see what everyone else has on the agenda for them. Another thing to do is to set aside entire days of time where you're only focused on the things that create the most value and bring in the most money. So that you're not checking your email, you're not checking your voicemail, you're not doing any of that stuff. You might check your email and your voicemail once or twice during that day, but only for a little period of time. The rest of the time, you're just solely focused on getting something done. Another thing that we need to train ourselves to do is invest time in focused, uninterrupted blocks. Now, this is an idea that all of the great time management gurus teach, all the way from Peter Drucker back in The Effective Executive to modern experts like Dan Sullivan and Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz, who wrote The Power of Full Engagement. It's very important to just focus on one thing for an extended period of time. Cultivate the ability to focus your mind. And when you're focused on one thing for an extended period of time and you block out all the distractions and interruptions, and I mean turn off the phone, turn off the computer, turn off everything else, you don't have anything to do but that one thing. So, time management, what it is, it's about managing yourself, not about managing your time. It's about learning how to develop healthy habits and rituals so that you do the right things every day. And, counterintuitively, it's about setting up the conditions in your life, physically, emotionally, and logically, so that you're forced to do the right thing and you don't have any other options.
Spend time alone. It's incredibly important to get away from this noise in this world of so much complexity and think about how you can be more productive. Think about the best uses of your time. As I actually flew here from Botswana to this game reserve, I had a chance in the cockpit behind to fly the plane a little bit. We were in a small bush plane, and I had a chance to fly the plane. And you've heard this before, but it was a powerful metaphor, which was a lot of the time. I mean, I was getting pushed off course, and then I'd come back on course. And most of the flight, when I was flying the plane, I was getting pushed off course and getting back on course. And that's what happens in our days, in our weeks, our months, and our life. We're constantly being pulled off course by Facebook notifications, mobiles ringing, emails, meetings, interruptions. I mean, that is one of the greatest things we're at war at right now, the war against distraction. And most of us are suffering from partial attention deficit disorder. And you really need to pull yourself away from the noise on a daily basis and think. Maybe it's by writing in a journal. Maybe it's by going for a walk in the woods. Maybe it's by meditating. But thinking about the best uses of your time, reconnecting with your values, refocusing so you come back even stronger. And by the way, time alone also recharges your focus. I mean, focus is it's a commodity, and it gets depleted. And you must refill your focus every day to be more productive.
What is time? How do you know when it's a long time, or how do you know when it's a short time? It's not because it's 10 minutes or 10 hours. How many have been in 10 hours and time flew because you loved what you're doing, didn't have any sense of time whatsoever? How many have had that experience? Say aye. How many have had 10 minutes feel like 10 years you want to kill somebody to get out of the situation? So what is time? Time is emotion. Got to remember that time is emotion. What you're really managing is emotion. Another word for that would be meaning or fulfillment. Focus is power, but you got to take it. Take it back. Take back that power. And you got to know when you do have that focus, how to chunk it, how to group it so you're not overwhelmed. Let me show you how to make it simpler. When mass information is coming at you, you get overwhelmed. Most of us are great deletion creatures. We delete most of life. Right now, there are millions of things around you could be focusing on, thinking about, giving meanings to, making decisions about what to do. Millions. Right now, you could be focusing on the blood rushing through your left eardrum or the feeling of your skin against your body. But most of you delete that. You don't even think about clothing against your skin until I mention it, or your heartbeat. Most of the universe you've deleted because you go crazy if you try to think about it all. Because human beings have a limited amount they can focus on at one time. And most of your stress is because you're thinking about too many things at once. In fact, when people don't do things, it's not because they can't. It's not even because they don't want to. It's because of the way they are focusing on what I call chunking things. When people don't follow through, here's what they do. I'll give you an example. Who here believes exercise is very important, but you don't exercise regularly? Let me see a show of hands. Raise your hand. More hands than most of us want to raise our hand, right? Now, who here really focuses, or I should say exercises regularly? Raise your hand. Regularly. Okay, great. Who here does not exercise regularly even though you believe it's important? Just be truthful. Okay, great. So let's see what the difference is here. A person who does not exercise regularly, I want you to raise your hand and I want you to tell me why you don't exercise regularly. Be truthful. Okay? Yes, sir. I don't have the time. Now, is that true? He even knows it's not true. He's going to answer you first. No. But it feels like he doesn't have the time because time is emotion. And he's got so many other things he is focused on getting results in that adding this to the list seems like a lot, right? And the other things are very important to him, like his business. I don't have the time. He has the time. What's the real reason he doesn't do it? Because of the way he thinks about exercise. When he focuses on what it would take to exercise, he does it very differently than someone who follows through. When you think about exercising, what's involved?
At the moment, about mile 14 of the London Marathon. Quite painful.
Okay, he starts thinking about, I got to get to mile 14 of the London Marathon. And that, even the thought of trying to get to the 14th mile, much less the 25th mile, is like beyond my imagination right now. So he is what I call over-chunked. He's not thinking about what he wants. He's thinking about what's painful. You just saw a perfect example. He's not even thinking about victory or succeeding. So the chance of him following through on something that he associates major pain to, when he can do something else right now he can feel competent or successful at, his chances of following through are very limited. How many will follow that? Say aye. His focus is on failure. His focus is on pain. That's why he isn't following through. Okay? He's also focused on the 14th mile of a marathon rather than today's workout. Which one seems more daunting to you? So when you think of and here's also what he's thinking about. He's thinking about the process, not the outcome or result he wants. And when you think about what it's going to take to do something, usually it takes a lot and you're not going to want to do it. So he's overchunked himself. He's trying to eat the whale whole without taking any smaller bites. And it seems too big for him, so he says, well, I'll do it when? Later. As my Australian friends would say, later. Right? And of course, the problem with doing it tomorrow is when you get to tomorrow is today, and tomorrow never comes. So, and you keep promising yourself. By the way, what does this do to you emotionally when you keep breaking your own promises with yourself? Or you keep failing to do things that you know are important? Does it increase your level of certainty and confidence? No. What it does is it erodes it. And when you erode confidence in one area, believe it or not, it affects the other areas too. Do you believe me on that? Don't believe me. What about your own life experience? Maybe not one area, but it starts to be multiple areas. It sure does. Another reason why somebody doesn't exercise or do anything is because they don't just chunk it too big, they chunk it in too many details. I'll give you a perfect example. So I asked somebody one time, I said, okay, how important is exercise? Oh, exercise is extremely important. Really? Okay, good. And tell me, why don't you exercise regularly? Well, I just don't have time. Okay, everybody gives that answer. That sounds wonderful. So tell me, though, don't tell me about how much time you don't have. Tell me this. When you think about exercising, what do you think about? Which is a way of saying, what do you focus on? And so this woman says to me, well, my gosh, what do you mean what do I think about? Well, let's say I said to you, you got to start exercising, and I'm going to put a gun to the head of your children, and I will do very horrible things and hurt them badly if you don't exercise. Could you do it? Oh yeah, I could do it. You know, if some mafia person came here and said, I'm going to kill your children if you don't exercise every day, how many think you could find a way to exercise every day, no matter what your time constraints may be? So remember this. Remember this. Change is never a matter of ability. It's always a matter of motivation. I'll say that again. Change is never a matter of ability. It's always a matter of motivation or drive, having strong enough reasons. If you got a strong enough reason, you could figure out the time, couldn't you? So the biggest part of life and time management is knowing what you want and having enough reasons to follow through.
So my quick take on managing your time and yourself, I have two quick thoughts on it. The first is you want to make sure that you plan it into your schedule. At least for me, it works really well for me. It may not work for you, but it's worth testing out. The important things that I want to get done, I make sure that there's a time in the week for me to do them. Whether that's shooting videos here on a Wednesday afternoon for the week on YouTube, whether that is spending time on Tuesdays making my book, whatever it is, the important things that have to happen in my life, I schedule them in. Also making sure I have time, for my wife and for my son and for my family and booking nights off and managing this business as well. The important things go in first, and then if I have extra time, it goes to the other things. Where I feel like too many people let things bleed from one into the next, and you feel like you're not getting enough of your to-do list done. And so put those important things in first. The second thing I would say too, though, is making sure that you're doing the things that you really want to do. You're doing the things that you're passionate about, that you're excited about, that have high value. I feel like a lot of times the goals that we set for ourselves aren't really truly deeply meaningful goals. It's great to nice to have, we should do that. You've read a book and somebody's all fired up about something, and so you want to go out and do that. I remember reading books and somebody's talking about going out and writing a manuscript or making a painting. Like, I want to write a manuscript, I want to make a painting, and then realize it's not actually something that I want to do. And so taking a really good hard look at your goals and seeing, are they things that are really motivating for you? Are they things that must happen, or things that just should probably happen? Because you're not going to do the things that you should do, you do the things that you must have to do. So be passionate about the goals that you put down. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'd love to know what you thought of the video. What was your favorite comment? Leave it down below and I'm gonna join in the discussion. I made this edition of Believe Life because Edgar asked me to. So if there's a topic you'd like me to cover in the next edition of Believe Life, leave it down in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Finally, I want to give a quick shout out to Andre Sees from SeesFinancial.com. Andre, thank you so much for buying my book. It really, really means a lot to me. For those of you watching, you want a chance at a shout out in a future video, make sure to pick up a copy of the book and email in your receipts so we can keep track. Thank you guys so much for watching. Continue to believe, or whatever your one word is, and I'll see you soon.
In Switzerland, there are some mountains that can be climbed by people like you and me. We got to get a little bit better condition, but I mean, it's not like the mountain climber mountains that would be way beyond our skill level. But some of these mountains that can be climbed by you and me, it takes a day to get to the top, and then you just camp up there and you come down the next day. And on many of these places in Switzerland where you can do that, about halfway up the mountain is what they call the halfway house, halfway up the mountain. So a group of people starts off with a guide in the morning, and about noon, you're kind of tired, and you've been walking now for 4 or 5 hours, and you're coming up to the halfway house, and it's just it's a wonderful sight. Because as soon as you enter in the halfway house, you can smell the food, and they're getting ready for a good lunch, and you sit down, there's a fire in the fireplace, and there's nice soft chairs, and you can just rest your body and refresh your body. And so the people go into the halfway house and they eat and laugh and enjoy and just really just kind of take in that wonderful, refreshing atmosphere. About an hour and a half after being in the halfway house, the guide gets up and says, well, gang, it's time to put on your gear. We got to hike. We got to get on up to the top. This is a fact. About half the people decide not to go on up to the top. They're sitting around the table and they're just saying, you know what, go on up. You're going to be coming by here tomorrow. You're going to be having lunch here again tomorrow. We're just going to hang here. And so the people that want to get to the top, they put their stuff on and they kind of leave. And the rest of the people sit behind. They eat a little bit more food, get around the piano, sing some songs, get around the fireplace, enjoy the fire, warm themselves by the fire. And play games all afternoon, kind of enjoy themselves. But about 4:30, 4:45 in the afternoon, without anybody saying a word, the people who stayed in the halfway house, they slowly go over to where the window is, the big window, and they start looking outside and they start looking up at the top of that mountain. And as they look at the top of that mountain, they see their friends. Their friends are now getting the tents out and they're getting ready to prepare for the night, and it becomes very quiet, very somber. Because everybody in the halfway house realizes the mistake they've made. They've sold their mission for a little bit of comfort for a few hours. Next morning, down come their friends, and by noon, they come into the halfway house. And when they come in the halfway, they are laughing, they're high-fiving, they're talking about what they've seen, where they've been, experiences, the fact that it was almost impossible to get up there. In fact, they had to help each other get up there, and how they joined teams and held hands, and they're just telling all these stories and talk about the pictures they've taken, and they got the group picture up there with the flag at the top, and the people who remain behind, they don't say much. They just eat their lunch and then follow the rest of them down to the bottom of the hill where their friends are waiting for them. And those who paid the price and went to the top, who understood now is the time to reach the mission, they hug and tell stories and celebrate. And the others, they just kind of slip off and get in their car and go home because they realize they're never going to be what they wanted to be. They're never going to see what they wanted to see. They're never going to do what they wanted to do because they failed to realize when they're at the halfway house, now's the time to rest, and they go on.